This is your place for all things Grand Rapids Griffins and all things Toledo Walleye. This is the Hockeytown West podcast with your host, Brandon Cook and Nick Harrington.
And welcome back to the Hockeytown West podcast, your source for everything Grand Rapids Griffins and Toledo Walleye hockey. I am one of your hosts, Brandon.
And I'm Travis.
And it's back-to-back episodes without Nick. I think at this point, there's got to be like a team suspension or fine or something for missing this many episodes in a row.
LTIR.
He might end up on LTIR at this point. Who knows? I like the fine idea. Like, he's got to buy dinner after he misses like 3 episodes. That's his limit.
I mean, I'd say he can buy dinner next Friday, but he'll be in Mexico, so that's not going to
work. He won't be with us in Toledo. We'll be having way more fun than him in Mexico. Come on, God. Well, as we said, welcome back to the show. This episode, we're going to be diving in and giving you a preview of the Grand Rapids Griffins' upcoming weekend, which is an action-packed weekend and a rare back-to-back-to-back situation, which does not happen often in the American Hockey League, but it's happening early with the Griffins here, and they've got a crazy kind of road stretch here with 4 games on the road, 1 back at home, and they head right back on the road again. So they've got a lot going on. We're also going to kind of give you an update on the roster situation as Grand Rapids has made a couple call-ups from Toledo. If you listen to past episodes, you're aware of that. If you haven't, we'll fill you in. And we're actually going to start the episode off with some Red Wings talk because we don't get to do that very often, and I feel like we just got to talk about some stuff. But before we dive into that, Travis, man, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I mean, it's getting to be pretty cool outside, which makes my job kind of nice. You're not dying in the heat, but and the days are a lot shorter when you work 8s versus 10s, but pretty good day. I mean, we're just kind of getting ready for winter, you know. Yeah,
it's coming quicker than I'd like it to, but hopefully the snow stays away for a little bit longer because that makes trips to Toledo more complicated.
It's crazy. Next week's November, like, doesn't even seem possible.
I gotta start Christmas shopping. Good Lord. It's about that time.
My stepmom's asked us for our stuff, and I'm just like, it's not time. It's not time yet.
No, it doesn't feel like it. Well, let's dive into this here. So first thing, I want to talk a little bit about Red Wings hockey because one, if you don't know and you're new here, we're a Griffins and Toledo Walleye focused podcast. We focus more on the farm system and the prospects of the Detroit Red Wings than the Red Wings themselves. But recently, we've seen some Griffins graduate to the Wings, and one in particular right now, Marco Kasper, started the season in Grand Rapids and is now up in Detroit, playing his 3rd game or 4th game. I can't even keep track at this point. And obviously we've seen the graduation of Simon Edvinsson, Albert Johansson, and all that stuff. And with the way the Wings have started this season, I just want to talk about them because you see a lot on the internet right now, a lot of concern with this team. But I think people are more concerned than they need to be at this point with how early when we are into the season. Too, there's just so much unknown ahead for this team. But the first thing I wanted to address, the biggest thing I see on the internet right now is people saying that Newsy's seat is hot, which I don't know, from my perspective, and I think Travis agrees with me here, that could be farther from the truth.
I don't know. It seems like you see and hear articles that like people aren't on the same page in the organization and so on and so forth, but like I don't think it's a good idea. Like I really don't. Like this team, like, and we kind of talked about it the other day, like their timeline is not the next 2-3 years. You're looking like probably 5-6 years down the road when these kids all hit their stride and in their primes. It's just, I think it'd be a little premature to get rid of him myself. I don't even see why we're even talking about it. I mean, he's even said it a couple times, like this is kind of getting blown out of proportion because it's early in the year. Like if it's January and you lose 2 games in a row, you're probably not getting talked about as much. And like, you got to realize too, look who they're playing. Like, yeah, the Islanders game offensively wasn't great, but they found a way to win the game. Like, you play the Rangers twice, lost both of them. Played the Predators twice, won both of them. Those were supposed to be like perennial playoff teams. And then obviously the Pittsburgh game was tough, but that was kind of like a revenge game for them because they had gotten waxed at home the night before. So like I even said to my dad, like before that game started, I was like, this might be bad. Like Pittsburgh played last night, got smoked at home. Like they're going to have some fire. And I don't know. I just think it's a little crazy to be talking about getting rid of somebody this early in the year.
I'd go beyond saying it's a little crazy and say it's beyond crazy. Like, one, you look at the roster that we're dealing with here, and one of the points I'll hit on is these other pros that we've signed from other teams in the offseason that have come in and left us with a lot to be desired. But one of the things that people used to complain about the most when Jeff Blashill was the coach of the Detroit Red Wings was he didn't play the kids. He leaned on the veterans no matter how bad they were. He just didn't play the kids. And you're looking at this and seeing, Simon Edvinsson averaging 20 minutes per game right now at his young age is already something that Jeff Blashill would have never done. You're seeing Marco Kasper be trusted with big minutes and big opportunities. And you're seeing a lot of the times now in the Islanders game, even there was the line, with Bergie and Kasper out there and Ed and Sider at the back end there. You're seeing the kids get opportunities, which all in all is a feeling out period for the kids themselves. It's a big jump to go from the AHL to the NHL. You've got a lot to learn. They're not just going to go up there and score 3 goals a game. That's not how it works. So the lack of production on offense is kind of the cost of letting the kids get their time on the ice, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Edvinsson, everybody kind of had a feeling this could happen because he's probably the second best defenseman on that roster right now. It's kind of just an obvious thing if you watch the game. He's probably the second best player of all the defensemen they have. Personally, I'd like to see Johansson in more. I think he could provide some youthfulness just with the way he plays. A little bit better. Some younger legs on the back end might benefit them a little bit.
God, we could use that.
Simon, though, he's kind of starting to show everything that was talked about him and why he was picked 6th overall, I believe it was. So, and it's a perfect complement or a perfect pair with him and Sider. Both play the right or both right left. You put them on their strong sides. Obviously, it depletes the talent throughout the back end a little bit when you got to load up the top pair. But you know what? If you can get adequate minutes out of Sherratt and Petrie together and a form of Gustafsson and Mata, then you just have to do what you have to do. Up front, Kasper, he looks like he probably should have been there night 1. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Berggren, I thought we'd see maybe a little bit more so far than what we have. Maybe production-wise with the year he had in GR last year. Could be tough, though. It was good to see they put those two together the other day, and that kind of chemistry was reunited. And then today, Kasper's playing with Tarasenko and Kane. So, obviously they have center out today, but still, your 4th game, and you're like, all right, I'm going to be playing with Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko. A 9-year-old Marco Kasper is probably like, you'd have told him that. He's probably like, what? Like, well, are you serious? And then, I think the biggest thing too, I sent my dad a text today, Sider, Raymond, Edvinsson, Kasper. That's 4 first-round picks from Yzerman that are all now in the lineup. It's time to kind of unleash the kids a little bit, and it's good that they're kind of giving these kids a role this year versus next year, because you don't want to bring in 4 rookies at one time. You kind of want to stagger the process to where some of them have games. But I think all in all, the youth movement is starting to show, and I think it's only going to get better as the year goes on.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about it earlier, earlier in the season, we knew if they were going to lean heavily on the kids that are we going to be a playoff team? It's too early to call that, but 2, there's a chance that we wouldn't be. There's going to be growing pains with throwing this much youth into the roster, and we still anticipate maybe by the end of the season we can see more of it depending on the Mazur situation and what else happens this year. But you got to let the kids grow, and there's going to be pains with that. Hell, look at the Tigers, right? They started off the season rough. The kids were figuring it out, and all of a sudden the kids got hot, and all you need is a few streaks to string along, and you're right into the swing of things, especially when we're talking only this many games in. This is game 7 of the season tonight. Like, it's going to take time and there's going to be pains. As fans, we got the taste of almost making the playoffs last year. And I think that might have set the bar a little too high. I think even Yzerman said that before. Everyone was like, well, playoffs are expectations. And I don't think he ever set playoffs as expectations for Derek Lalonde. So to circle back to that, no, Newsy should not be on a hot seat. Do we want to see more? Do we want to see more fire from the team? Yeah, I'd like to see him, maybe pull a Dan Campbell out in the locker room one time and kind of go off here. But at the same time, the culture of this team is fine. You just want to see a little bit more. But I think what I want to see more of is from some of these veteran players. Like, before we hit recording, you and I were talking, like, Gustafson has left a lot to be desired. And a lot of these guys that we've signed to, 2-year deals from other teams over these past couple of years, or even 4-year deals. You look at the whole situation and you kind of sit here scratching your head going, what are these pro scouts seeing that they're coming to Steve Yzerman, putting that name on the desk and being like, yeah, we should sign this guy? I think that's where the questions need to start, is the pro scouting. Our amateur scouting is fantastic. Our overseas scouting is obviously fantastic, but the pro scouts are leaving a lot of question marks around this team right now. And I don't think anybody's talking about that. And I think that should be the main lead in the conversation when it comes to the Detroit Red Wings right now.
Yeah, you look at a lot of the pro signings, like, honestly, the only one that's really been great was Patrick Kane last year. Tarasenko's off to a pretty decent start. I wouldn't say great, but also he's not Tarasenko of 2011, like 2012. Trying to think, up and down the roster, who else has come in. Compher's kind of been as advertised. I would say
he's been good.
Solid.
I was just going to say that.
Cop maybe about $500,000 too much, maybe to $1 million, maybe. But you see what they're trying to do. They're trying to get that player that they started drafting. Like, your Andrew Kopp had been a reliable two-way player. Compher, reliable two-way player. Like, all these young guys that they've drafted. Look at Marco, reliable two-way player. Nate, reliable two-way player. Compete, like MBN, same thing. It just goes on and on and on. Like, I think the one thing that I think this team really lacks right now is a true superstar. And I think the biggest thing with them is they'll probably be like a 2019 Blues if they do ever get to that cup contending window, just because they didn't really have a superstar at that point. It was a lot of really good players and great players that are kind of together. I guess, if you want to throw a what if scenario out there just off of what he's done in the first 13 games of the SHL season, Axel Sandin Pellikka could be that superstardom style player offensively, that, this could inject some offense into this team in the future. Just thought I'd point him out. He's a point per game player through 13 games in the SHL, and he's still under 20 years old.
With a sick goal today too.
Yeah, like, and he got an assist on MBN's first goal. So, like, if you don't know that name, he's probably gonna skip Grand Rapids. That's still my prediction. I know it sucks to say, but he's probably gonna skip GR. I just think that guy could be the guy, like, that carries the offense. Like, true quarterback power play one, but that's for the future.
Yeah.
But it is a prospect, so.
Yeah, there's good that'll come down the road. We just have to have patience. Again, we got a taste of almost playoffs, and we instantly are like, we're going to go try to win a cup, and that's not how hockey works. And again, to call for a coach's head 7 games into the season, like, come on, we're better than that as fans. We know better. Like, the risks of that change up and down the organization right there as a whole it's a huge risk when you look at the chemistry between, Coach Lalonde, Coach Watson, and Coach Mickish. Like, there's history there that's going to help out in the long run here. That chemistry is going to carry forward. And when it comes to these prospects that are going to come up the chain, that's all going to be so important. But Lalonde's kind of working with what he's got right now. And I'd almost argue that this is definitely not the best roster that he's had in his coaching tenure to work with so far. I don't think it is. I think, last year's was pretty good, and I think he definitely lost pieces. And I think the experiment of saying we're gonna let Ghost go and bring in Gustafson to replace that, we knew he wouldn't produce as offensively, but he hasn't been good. And outside of that, I think my only critique of alone at this point is Albert Johansson's got to be in the lineup more. And outside of that,
I think so too.
I don't see much. Like, I think everything else that he's been working with, he's done the best that he can with it. Again, we do want to see some more passion and fight there, but again, you can tell that he's not sounding the alarm, and the players themselves aren't, because we're 7 games into a freaking season. Now, January, if we're struggling to score goals and only putting up 10 shots per game, then yeah, it's a different conversation we can have. I would say by Thanksgiving, if we're still only putting up 10 shots a game, it's a different conversation you could have. But we're not firing Newsy. Steve Yzerman's seat's not hot. Newsy's seat's not hot. Like, calm down.
I think, and they said it during the first period tonight, they had almost 100 points leave the lineup. And the shooting percentages aren't sustainable from last year either. There's just no way. It's just, if you go back and look at their overall shooting percentages, it's not going to stick. It's just not going to. But, you try to fill through within. I mean, it's tough, yeah, you wish you had more out of maybe your top end guys while the prospects kind of come in, and it's early still. But when you lose 100 points out of a lineup, that's extremely tough to replace, let alone replace it with kids or veterans that, while they're good, they hadn't been as productive. Take Gustafson, for example. He's not Shane Gostisbehere offensively. He's good. He's complement. He can do it, but not to the level. I mean, Ghost has, I think he's got 3 or 4 goals already this year. I read somewhere.
I'm sure.
But he's capable of doing that. And again, this kind of leads into the Pelika statement. Next year, if Gustafson's still here, Pelika makes the roster, then you have a transition process. You're not just, here you go. You have somebody that can adequately do it. They're trying to fill the gap to where these kids don't have to come in and be the 2011 Oilers, where they have all these first overall draft picks, and then you're rolling out 18, 20, 22-year-old kids, and it doesn't work. You still got to have that blend. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah. Well, I think that's enough Wings talk for a Griffins and Walleye podcast, but we haven't talked about the Red Wings much this season. Oh, we could do a whole episode Red Wings focus. We could do a whole podcast being Red Wings focus, but there's enough good ones out there that do the job for us that we don't need to do that. So let's circle back now. Go back to Grand Rapids. We talked about it at the very beginning. There's been some roster updates with the team. Obviously, Carter Mazer is still out. We do not have an update still on that injury. We would love to be able to provide one to you, but we all know that the AHL does not release information about injuries. And if they do, it's going to be the most vague, upper body injury, lower body injury, whatever. That's all we're going to get. So we're not going to speculate. We're not going to dig for it. We're just going to take what we have and hope that Carter is back soon. And if whatever he's got is long-term, hopefully they take the appropriate time needed and he comes back stronger than ever. With that, and Marco Kasper still being in Detroit, we have seen the Griffins recall Carson Bantle and Gabriel Seeger from the Toledo Walleye, which, Travis, you'll be able to speak on pretty well after being able to watch them skate in person and play. They performed well with the Walleye at the very beginning of the season. One of them 2 goals in 2 games, and the other one looked really solid out there as well and had good chemistry between the two. So what can Griffins fans expect to see from those two as they join the lineup, and where do you think they'll slot in this case?
High motor. They're big boys. They're not afraid to use their body, but offensively gifted in the same hand. I mean, Gabriel Seeger was a Hobie Baker finalist in college. Carson Bantle was a 4th round draft pick. So there's obvious skill there. And with Bantle, not, he didn't sign with Arizona, I believe was his original draft team. But they both played really well. They both just played well in general in Toledo. And honestly, you've seen it first game. I even seen it the preseason game. I was like, okay, these guys probably won't be here that long. Sucks for us, but great for GR. I'd love to see him play with Hunter Johannes myself. I think that would be a kind of like identity line, and I don't think they're going to try to force them up the lineup initially. I don't think that's something that Waddy does. We were kind of surprised that they played basically the second line in Toledo. You don't really know if it was truly their second line, but they did play with Mitchell Lewandowski. They didn't look out of place at all, and which, with what we've seen at camp, it kind of made sense that they were sent to Toledo. But then with how well they looked right out of the gate in Toledo, it's like, okay, well, they definitely deserve to get a look in Grand Rapids. On my part, it sucks that it was so early, but at the same time, we also cover the Griffins, so it's still just exciting just to see them.
Yeah.
You want the players to move up. Like, you always want what's best for the player. They want to try to get to the NHL someday, so that part of it, you're happy to see.
Yeah, and what it's going to do for everybody, it's going to push a lot of people up the lineup and give a lot of opportunities to guys who, one, we want to see them get these higher minute opportunities, and two, I think they're going to rise up to the occasion. I mean, we saw what Lombardi did this past weekend, being bumped up one line, scores 2 goals. Like, oh, okay, give the kid the opportunity. He's going to go out there and do some things. But I am excited to see these guys slot in and just see where it all fits in. And the nice thing was the call-up happened super early in the week. It happened, I believe, on Monday. So they've had time to practice with the boys all week, get adjusted. They're traveling together. And I think the chemistry will be there, and we'll be in a good spot. So I think Grand Rapids is definitely going to benefit. It does suck for Toledo because after watching last night's game in Idaho, I think that size and skating ability in the offense would have been welcomed against them. But we'll talk about them next week more in our Walleye Wednesday episode after this Idaho series is done. But that's all the updates that we have for the roster. We'll see where they slot in as soon as they share the roster Friday night, and we'll kind of dissect that, I guess, on Sunday when we recap this crazy weekend. But it's time to dive into the actual preview of this weekend. The Griffins start off this crazy road trip in Springfield, Massachusetts on Friday night against the Springfield Thunderbirds. And it looks like it's shaken up to be a pretty good matchup. Springfield's had a decent start to the season so far. 5 games in, 2-3, but their division is also quite a difficult one to be in, if I'm being honest. So it'll be interesting to see where the Griffins do match up. Last season, we played these guys twice. We won the first game in overtime in Springfield. Good old Jared McIsaac overtime winner. There's a name we haven't said in a minute. And then we do unfortunately lose the matchup in Grand Rapids against Springfield. So we split the season series with them last year. It is fun to go play these out of division games as early. I'm excited to see these. I'm excited for a road trip overall, because if you followed the show long enough, you know exactly what happened with the Grand Rapids Griffins last year. They kind of bounced back and forth in the beginning of the season in the standings and across their schedule. They played some away games, some home games. There really was no set road trip. And then they went to Texas right before Christmas, had a long road trip, bonded, and then came out of the gates after Christmas just absolutely on fire. Well, we get that road trip out of the way a little bit earlier this season. But it does excite me to see that the boys will get out there. We know that they left on Wednesday morning, so they're already in Springfield. They're practicing on Springfield's ice today. And it's going to be an interesting road trip. But to talk about the Springfield Thunderbirds specifically, there's one name on their roster that really stuck out to me. It was Dalibor Dvorsky. He was a guy that, a lot of Wings fans were kind of hoping maybe the Wings might draft in the 2023 draft, but he was drafted by St. Louis. This is his first season in pro hockey, 5 games in, 2 goals, 2 assists. Seems to kind of be as advertised for them. Is definitely going to be a guy to watch out for. But the rest of their roster, you look at it and you don't really recognize a lot of names. This was a struggle for us to preview for this one and really kind of dive in and see who these guys were, because a lot of them are a lot younger and guys that haven't made a lot of noise in the league. So this roster is definitely different than Grand Rapids. But I think the biggest advantage Grand Rapids is going to have this weekend is when it comes to, goaltending with this team. You have Colton Ellis is one goaltender. He's rocking a 2.69 goals against and a .918 save percentage right now. Or you've got Vadim Shirenko. I probably butchered that. Rocking a 3.55 goals against and a .881 save percentage. So based on just those stats right there, Trav, I think the Griffins with their offensive upside might be able to expose the Springfield team a little bit.
Yeah, the first guy had relatively decent numbers. I don't know how many games he's played. The second guy, not quite as strong, but the out of division matchups in minor league hockey is always something to kind of keep an eye on. Like, I can only kind of cross reference it with what we're going through in Toledo right now. Like, we go out and play Idaho, and that's like we've always kind of just, that's kind of been a tough thing to do, is play out of division, just because you see so much in division play. Obviously, it's fun when you get to go out of division, especially on the road, because like for the Griffins, like they get to go to Springfield and then they get to go to Lehigh Valley. So I just think that, yeah, their offense has kind of been somewhat lackluster, the Griffins. So you're kind of hoping maybe this road trip can kind of get them to break through offensively. It's only a matter of time before it happens. I think we kind of recapped that, on our last Griffins episode, where it's just like, okay, we're not hitting the panic button. And with these two coming up, like you said, it gives guys opportunities to play up in the lineup, more minutes, playing at a higher role. So, yeah, I think this could be a big weekend for the Griffins. They're playing well. They're 3-1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, 3-1 so far.
So they're off to a good start. Just kind of build on it. Obviously, you don't have a ton of film to watch with these out of division games, at least with these two teams they're playing. They did play last year, you said?
Yep, they did play last year twice, one home, one away. Same thing this season. We'll have Springfield back in Grand Rapids later on this season.
So, I mean, at least there's some familiarity there. But I think you're going to see the Griffins offense kind of finally find its stride.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good weekend for that. I expect to see a big weekend probably from Amadeus again. I think he's going to take that momentum that he had in that last Manitoba game and just keep riding it. I think that this weekend you could really see the coming out party of Nate Danielson too. I know we haven't seen much offensively. Fantastic defensively in Grand Rapids so far. Absolutely incredible, as advertised, exactly what you'd expect. But you do want to start to see him get a couple points on the board, and I think that's something you can definitely see in this game specifically. And then you got to remember, too, these veteran players that joined this team this year, they finally are starting to get adjusted to playing for Grand Rapids. And I think as, this goes on, the bonding time off ice plus more practice on ice, I think you're only going to continue to see those guys get better. I think you'll see Sheldon Dries and Joe Snively make a really large impact on this team, especially with the absences that we have. And defensively, I mean, Grand Rapids has been outstanding, only allowing 5 goals in the 4 games they've played so far this season. Between the defense and the goaltending situation, I think we're in a good spot there. And I'll dive more into the goalies when we talk kind of Lehigh Valley, since that's a back-to-back Saturday-Sunday game. But overall, Travis, what's kind of overall prediction for the Griffins in this game, specifically against Springfield? Do you see a high-scoring game? Do you see them winning this game? What do you see?
Based off, I mean, the little bit I see, you kind of brought me up to speed on. I can see him winning the game. I think they want to get that. You go out on the road, you want to win that first game to kind of set the tone for a road trip. So I think that they're going to come out and want to play a really good game, a good road game. Waddy's kind of said that they want to be better on the road this year.
Yes.
So I think, the guys have that expectation of, we want to be better on the road, and they get, the next 4 on the road. So starting it off in Springfield with a win would really help them out.
Yeah, so we're excited to tune into that one. As always, follow the Twitter page and every other social media page we have, and we'll have highlights on there as much as we can. I know there's some struggling with scheduling for Nick and myself with that game on Friday.
Bear with me tomorrow.
Travis is going to be the one running the clips. I gave him a test run with Toledo last night. He did a fantastic job, so he'll do the best he can with it until Nick or myself gets home from work. But the Griffins do, again, face off Springfield Thunderbirds at 7:05 Eastern time on Friday here. So we're excited for that one. But before we jump into talking about Lehigh Valley, who the Griffins will play Saturday and Sunday, I think we got to send it to an ad break. And when we come back, we'll preview the Lehigh Valley games and talk a little bit more about the AHL around the league. So Nick will go read the ad now, I guess.
The quest for the Stanley Cup starts now. The puck's dropping on the 24-25 season. Get in on all of the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Super easy for the first timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. With the Red Wings opening the season on Thursday, October 10th, the current line is Detroit Red Wings a minus 130 on the money line. Odds and lines are subject to change between now and then. And if you are new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $200 and bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 and bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming restrictions, see dkng.co/ice. Copyright NHL 2024. All rights reserved. Hockey is in the air, and the throw of the game is bringing Griffin fans from all over the state to the Van Andel Arena. So when you're looking to get tickets, your number one choice should be Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You can see players like Marco Kasper and Sebastian Cossa before they make their way to the wings, and you get the seat views before you buy, so you can see what it looks like from where you'll be sitting, which is one of my favorite things about Game Time. Curated deals make it easier to find the best price on great seats, and with the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and more. Game Time should be your number one destination for your tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Pick. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code THPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code THPN for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
And we're back. All right, let's dive into these Lehigh Valley Phantoms. If you don't know who they are, they're the affiliate of the Philadelphia Flyers, arguably one of the sickest logos in the AHL, honestly. It's one we can all appreciate. This is the Griffins' first time playing the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. We've played the old Philadelphia Phantoms back in the day, but this is the first time we've played them as the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, so that's always cool to get a first-time matchup out of the way. There's not many of those left in the league. I think Providence and maybe only a couple other teams are left on that list, so always do enjoy playing a new team, seeing some new colors on the ice, and yeah, it's going to be a fun one. Now, Lehigh, they're off to an interesting start this season. They've only played 3 games so far. Most other teams in the AHL have played 4 or 5. They're 1-2 so far, and kind of the same thing the Griffins are going through, with only 7 goals scored so far and 10 goals against. So lacking on the offensive side a little bit. The interesting thing that Travis and I have noticed so far is only one of their goaltenders has played so far this season. They have not used their second one. Alexei Kolosov, obviously, a Flyers goalie pick. Like he's pretty decent from what we've seen. Currently rocking a 3.06 goals against and a .878 save percentage in these 3 games. Faced 65 shots total so far over these 3 games. So it should be interesting to see if he's going to play both Saturday and Sunday too, and they're just going to keep riding this goaltender, or if we'll see one of the other 2 goalies listed on the Phantoms roster, one being good old Cal Peterson, the other one, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name. I just don't even want to embarrass myself like that. I know he's Finnish, and that's about all I've got for you. So the goalie situation will be interesting to see unfold for this team. So far, stats-wise, like I said, not a lot of scoring so far from this team. Samu Tamalua, I, again, probably butchered the crap out of that. 1 goal, 2 assists so far, so 3 points in 3 games, followed by Jacob Goucher. 3 games played, 2 goals, no assists. Yeah, that's literally all stat-wise that sticks out when it comes to Lehigh Valley for us, which I know not a lot to talk about with this team being so early in the season, when I can look back to last season being they were a playoff team. Granted, most teams in the AHL make the playoffs. They finished 6th in their division last year with 32 wins, 31 losses. Didn't make it deep in the playoffs at all. It's a team that hasn't seen a ton of success over the past few years, which is kind of crazy. You'd think with the Flyers rebuilding, you'd see some hotshot prospects down with this team maybe lighting it up, but maybe they just haven't drafted that well. Who knows? But What I do want to focus on with this is we said the Griffins are playing a 3-3, right? Which is rare in the AHL. The Lehigh Valley Phantoms are also playing a 3-3. They play Hartford on Friday night to then turn around and play us on the Saturday and Sunday games. So looking at just kind of overall where they've started this season, Travis, and playing a 3-3 as well, what do you think we can expect for these couple games?
Both teams having to travel that night after a game, coming home. So it's not like Lehigh's going to be sitting there waiting, and they got to travel too. But it'll be an interesting weekend. With both teams traveling, I think that kind of helps the Griffins just because like Lehigh has to also travel. They're not just sitting at home waiting for them to come in off an off night. They're all going to have to play and then travel.
Yeah, that does make it a little better for Grand Rapids in that case. Again, 3-3s in the AHL are very rare. To see two teams doing it in the same weekend and happen to play each other, it's kind of crazy. But I think one thing I got to point out, because we talk about it a lot with Grand Rapids, right? The power play or lack thereof as of late. Lehigh Valley special teams. So far this season with 14 power play opportunities, 28.6% over those 3 games they've played. And their penalty kill sitting at a cool 75%. So, one, we've been waiting for the Griffins' power play to strike, and they've gotten more and more comfortable with every game. We're seeing improvement over each game. A team with rocking a 75% PK might be the time where this power play finally has a coming out party, and I think it's going to be the first true test of the Griffins' penalty kill. Between that and playing, Springfield, that they played them the night before, they're only at 10.5%. power play right now. So the test for the penalty kill, probably not really there. This will be the first true test to see what this PK can do while they're out there.
Yeah, I really hope that this Griffins power play can finally catch its stride. We've all kind of been harping and saying, like, look, there's too much talent here for it to be this cold. So if they can kind of find their stride going into a team that, under 80%, you said?
Yeah, 75% on the PK right now.
Yeah, that's a favorable matchup, I think. If you can go in there with a team that's kind of struggling to find their way, killing penalties, if you can take that special teams battle and win that, it's only going to help your case. Special teams can dictate how you win hockey games. I mean, we kind of seen it last night with Iowa and Toledo.
Yeah.
When you have good special teams, offense and defense, it generally is going to lead you to winning a lot of hockey games. And the Griffins power play getting off to a good start this weekend, I think would be huge.
Yeah, I think that could be the difference maker in some of these games. I think special teams will probably be the thing that dominates the conversation when we recap these games for next week's episode. I'm just really hoping with the lack of a Carter Mazer and a Marco Casper that some of these guys can find their way. Again, we've seen the positioning improve dramatically on the power play. One being they're just parking Elmer Soderblom in front of the net. That's what's got to happen when you're on the power play. I think though what we really want to see is the guys like Ammo, the guys like Danielson, those guys finally start kind of showing up on that power play. I think this is probably the weekend for them to do it, but at the same time there's a lot of unknown with this. I'm not concerned on the other side of things with the penalty kill. Grand Rapids' penalty kill has been solid for the past season and a half now. With Brian Lashoff at the helm, kind of leading that and coaching that side of things. So I think you're going to get to really see that shine. And with the players that they have, is barring any other call-ups, we know the flu's going around the Red Wings locker room. We know Lalone possibly talked about a call-up happening, and we would assume it's Austin Watson if it does. And that would be kind of a big hit on the penalty kill. It's not someone we want to lose. He's a really good penalty killer for this Griffins team. So I just hope nothing crazy happens now that I'm speaking it into existence. It'll probably happen as soon as this episode goes live. But I just want to see what they can do against a solid power play.
Yeah, they've been good defensively all year. And I think, that starts in net. Kosa's been really good. Husso looked really good the other night. So when your goaltender's playing well and your defense is playing well in front of them, I think that only gives you more confidence that if you do take a penalty, you're going to have confidence in yourselves that you can kill it off. They've shown that their penalty kill is probably one of the best parts of the whole team so far. I think it's one of the big standouts for sure that I've noticed, especially in their team game. But, obviously play with the discipline and just keep playing well defensively. I mean, Waddy's always kind of preached playing well defensively. Lashoff, defensively minded guy. He's going to be on them, harping on them, play solid defense. And, when you have to kill penalties, you got to kill penalties. But it'll be a good test for them.
Yeah, and just looking back quickly here, while I glance over at this screen, looking at Lehigh's schedule this season, they just got off the back-to-back this past weekend playing the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, who are sitting currently third in the Atlantic Division, who 17 goals for, 11 against. They're a pretty good team, so obviously it was a struggle for Lehigh, but seeing that they've only scored 7 goals out of these 3 games, I think the Griffins kind of got to be chomping at the bit with how good they are defensively to get after this team. I think it's going to be a night where the offense might be able to play a little bit more freely, a little bit looser, maybe not have to worry about the defensive side of the puck as much and kind of go out there and do what we expect a lot of them to do, which is score goals.
Yeah, you just want them to find that offensive touch. I mean, that's probably the one thing every Griffin fan's probably waiting for is the offense to just find their rhythm and go. It's weird because Detroit's kind of in that same place too. Like,
yeah, you don't like seeing that across 2 teams in the organization. You kind of go, crap. But again, it's early.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with the Griffins is like, if they can just find a game where if they can get 4, like, I know that's a big number, or even if you can put up another 3 spot, like, win a game outside of it being 1-0 or 2-1. Now, granted, we just talked earlier about how a win's a win. It doesn't matter how you get it. But with just how they've kind of struggled a little offensively, more than what we kind of maybe initially thought that they would, I think if a road trip to where they can go in and find their offense is only going to just take this team to another level that, we know that's there. It's just a matter of them finding it.
Yeah, especially when you're lining up against a team that has allowed 3 goals per game so far in every game this season. Like, that's exactly kind of what the Griffins need to, 1, boost the confidence, and 2, just really start something and get this train rolling. So that is all I have, though, for Lehigh. Again, it's a really small sample size to give you guys a massive preview of, especially when there's no top prospect to sit here and gush over. Luckily for the Griffins, when we do this podcast, we have a lot of those to talk about and gives us plenty of talking points for an entire show. But
I got one
overall,
thing.
Yeah, what do you got?
With Lehigh, they have Brennan Fury. I played against him. He wasn't like a high draft pick or anything, but it's still kind of cool. It gives me another reason to even watch the game more than what I am for the podcast. But so it'll be cool to kind of see him play against a team that you're covering. But this is his I think it's his second full season pro.
Yep, second full season pro. He had 57 games last year and had 18 points.
Yeah, so it's just cool. He's from, Toledo, Ohio, and, to even make it to the American League, that's really cool for him. I mean, so just something for me to watch, and, like, if you get to watch it, you're like, oh, hey, Trav played against that guy.
Knows that guy. Yeah. Well, this is the fun part, Trav, because you didn't get to do any of the Griffins previews with us last season. So this is where we get to either celebrate being right when we record on Sunday and release Monday, or put our foot in our mouth. What's your prediction for the Griffins' 3 games this season? Wins? How many wins? How many losses?
I'm going to go 2-0-1.
2-0-1. Ooh, I can't think of many games last year where we threw predictions out there where we threw the overtime loss in there. I think we just always said win or lose, but I like that. I was going to say 2-1, but I'll support your thing there too. I think they might drop one of the Lehigh games. I don't think both, but if they can come out with the win in Springfield and win Saturday night, I'm pretty confident for the Sunday game. That would be nice to come out of here with 3 wins. I think the biggest question I have for you, and this is where your opinion will really get interesting. Do we see a rotation of Ville Husso, Sebastian Kosa, and then do we see Malcolm Subban make his Griffins debut this weekend with the 3-3? and having to play on Wednesday. No?
Mm-mm. Kosa, Huso, Kosa, Kosa.
Ooh. Okay.
That's my prediction.
See, I think you're going to see Huso, Kosa, Sub. I think we see Sub make a debut, especially if you win the first 2 games. I think you could definitely see that happening.
I think, I would agree with you. If they win the first 2 games, I could see Subban getting a game.
Yeah.
This is the thing. They have 4 goaltenders right now. So it's like,
I know.
How do you juggle that? You don't want guys to just sit and not play, especially that position. That's tough.
Especially paying a guy on a PTO. Like, you got to get you're paying him. Like, let's see what happens here.
Right. It's interesting. I mean, does Dan go what he did his last year in Toledo? Just go Kosa, Huso? Like, does he just keep the every other game? Like I said, I think their outcomes on Friday, Saturday could dictate maybe who plays on Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's going to be
I like
gonna
where
be
your
it
head's
right
at
there.
there. I really like
Yeah.
that thought.
Because you got to think too, Costa started the season on that back-to-back with a 1 home, 1 away in Rockford there. And then obviously this past weekend we saw Huso play his first game of the season after being assigned here, then saw Costa come in. So I think if they win the first 2, that's what you see. I'd like to see a game with Subban and net. I really do want to see and understand what he's all about because, again, I don't think we have Huso here long term. It all depends on how things shake out. There's so much craziness with this roster, and as Derek Lalone and everyone else has said, it's very fluid. So that's going to be the word of the year for this organization, fluid.
So here's, I mean, we can cut this out if you want to.
No.
I think Ville Husso, maybe if he keeps playing the way he played, becomes a trade piece.
There is potential there for it, which
50% retained takes him to about $2 million. If I'm not
it gives them the
mistaken.
cap space they need to start moving things around up and down when they get to send guys back and forth.
And there's some goalie needy teams right now. Like, you can't tell me that Colorado at $2 million for the rest of the year wouldn't take a gamble. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that trade's, if it does, I'll take the credit for it. But I'm just saying, like, somebody carrying 3 is tough, like extremely tough. But then, like, I could eat my own words because the guy that they could have had to move one of those 3 isn't even with the teams right now with Jack Campbell. So,
yeah,
if there's an injury, then you have Kosa coming up. Probably would be the first call up if given the circumstances. If they were to move a goaltender via trade, then you're gonna have Kosa coming up. Like, is that what they really want right now? But I'm just throwing a speculation thing out there. Like, if he continues to play this well, does he get a look in Detroit? Do other teams start calling? Like, like it's fluid. I know we keep using the word fluid, but like, at some point, there comes a point where you're like, he pitched a shutout. If he comes out and continuously plays well, does Detroit give him another look? I mean, with how Talbot's playing, he hasn't played bad. Alex Lyon's got a .950 save percentage right now.
Alex Lyon's playing out of his freaking mind.
Right. So it's like, okay, like, and Talbot's got another year. Like, you're on an expiring contract. Like, is there, like, if you could flip him even for a mid-round pick, like, and if you retain salary, like, and then it gives you some cap flexibility. I'm not saying any of this is going to happen. This is just pure speculation, pure, like, just me thinking,
I don't hate the thought. Like, I understand where it's coming from. One, I hate it because, like, I love Ville. He's a great guy, and you hope nothing but the best for him. But if he's going to play like he's playing, yeah.
Like, like, he's proven in points in his career, he's an NHL goaltender. If it's not with us, at some point for the person, you'd love to see a fresh start with a different organization. You know what I mean? If he continues to play the way he played the first game with the Griffins.
I think the question mark, because you bring up Colorado as a team, and I think the question mark for Colorado is how long do they keep dealing with the situation they're dealing with before they call up Trent Miner from the Colorado Eagles? He's played a couple years. He's a 2019 draft pick, 7th round pick for the Avalanche. Last season, after 18 games last season with the Eagles, 2.10 goals against, .93 save percentage. Currently this season, only in 2 games. Again, small sample sizes. It's early in the season, folks. .97 goals against and a .960 save percentage. So you think maybe like, oh, is this kid going to get a way too early shot? Like we hate seeing teams do, and whatever. I think they might make a move like that before they make a trade. But the Husso thing is really interesting and it makes sense. And like you said, if you could flip him for a mid-round pick, retain 50% of the salary for this year, gives us the flexibility to move around. I love Billy, but I don't see why they wouldn't try to do something like that because they need flexibility. Like you can't keep having to send Hull down. Hull's looked good in these past few games he's played. I keep just, refreshing Twitter while we're recording this and see people complimenting him again on his play tonight.
From the little bit I've looked, over periodically, he hasn't been bad at all. I mean, and that's...
Yeah, you can't threaten to send him down to Grand Rapids. As a Griffins fan, I'm like, if he's playing like that, bring him on. Let's freaking go. This defense is already good enough. Holy crap. But you got to start looking like, what are the Red Wings going to do? They're going to either have to send somebody else that's cap heavy down and hope they clear, or try to flip Ville Husso now and get something back for it. Because like, who else are you going to send down? You're going to send down Gustafsson. I mean, you're going to send down Mata.
Well, clearly with how much runway they're giving Gustafsson, that's probably not the case. But I don't know. I just thought, we were talking about goaltenders. He's played really well. You're hoping for the person that he can get back to the NHL. At one point, he was a really good NHL goaltender, good enough for Eisman to give him out a pretty solid contract. I mean, so
we've got into Delkovich situation on our hands where you like the person, you like the goalie, but you're like, what can we flip him for? If anything, then you lose him, and then he goes off to another team and is playing well and is still in the NHL. I think that's exactly what we're going through right now. And you just hope this time we can, if we're going to lose him, at least get something for him, because you never know what a mid-round draft pick's going to be. It could turn out to be something crazy, or it could turn out to be a flop. But at the same time,
just a talking point for us, like.
Yeah, no, I love the talking point for this, but with the current situation, especially like we don't know how long Jack's going to be gone for. If Jack comes back, the Griffins are carrying 5. What?
Right, like it. And Gage Alexander
there's one man losing in this situation, and it's Gage Alexander. Is he going to touch the ice this year? Probably not.
Like at that point, do you just call another team and be like, "Hey, can you take him on a loan?" Like just so he can play. Like you want.
It's not fair to him.
We're a minor league podcast. What do you see? A lot of movement, a lot of guys getting opportunities at other levels. Like, but if you come from the ECHL, you get a call up to the American League. You have a player here that, didn't have the best year last year with Tulsa. Tulsa wasn't that great of a team, but you feel for the person. Like, it's got to be terrible to just sit there and practice. And now there's 4, and then say Campbell comes back tomorrow. There's 5. Like,
yeah, I mean, you see it happen. Like, you look at, there's a perfect goaltender as an example of this, Pavel Kazan. He's been playing with the Cleveland Monsters, getting opportunity when they call up there. He's assigned to Cincinnati. We've seen him bounce back and forth to Kalamazoo. We've seen him play in Cincinnati. We've seen him play with Cleveland. You got to give the guy an opportunity to play. And I know there's teams in the minors that are also in need of goaltenders. Like, there's no way you can't find just someone to loan them out there, make a good relationship with the team, maybe for some future considerations down the road, right? We love that player. He gets moved around the most. But, like, you got to let the guy play. Like, this isn't fair. And I mean, Subban's probably just happy to be signed to a PTO since he wasn't on a team, but you can't tell me that there's not a team out there that wouldn't sign him at this point. Hell, if he was probably available, Colorado would probably give him a look at this point. Who knows? Like, I don't know. This goalie situation is going to dominate a lot of conversation this year, and it just gets crazier by the week to think that, like we said, if Jack came back tomorrow, we have 5 freaking goalies in the American League here, on top of having 2 budding prospects in the ECHL, or in Jan Bednar and Carter Gylander. Like, what are we doing here? Goalies aren't infinity stones. We don't need to collect them all. Like, this is crazy.
You know what it just shows? Like, just shows that if the NHL were to expand to 36, there's still enough goaltenders in the world that you could supply 3 more organizations from the NHL to the ECHL of goaltenders.
Just from our one team.
Right.
This is stupid. But it is going to be the question mark of the season this weekend. Will we see 3 different goalies? Will we see a rotation of 2? And you'd think when you bring up that point, if we're looking at Husso as a potential trade piece, he's going to play 2 games this weekend and Coase is going to get 1. That's a possibility.
Look, I mean, they're paying the guy $4.5 or almost $5 million. I think it's actually 4.75.
I think so.
You want to get him games, even if you, like you said, if you did get a chance to just flip him, like for the person's sake, so he can get back up to the NHL. I mean, hey, if he gets 2 and Coase gets 1, you're probably going to see Coase Wednesday regardless, with a few days off in between, and then you're going to have another game next week in the middle of the week. It's just, I would not be shocked if at the end of the day you see a variation of Coase, Husso, Coase, Husso, or Husso, Coase, Husso, Coase. Dan did it for 2 years in Toledo, and it worked wonderfully. And they're still doing it down here. So, it's just a situation I could see happening.
Yeah, watch us just be completely wrong on all of this and have to sit here and laugh at us on Monday. And
they go Alexander Subban.
Not a chance in hell.
I just had to. I had to.
You had to. Yep. But outside of that, man, I don't have any other final thoughts for this weekend to add. Again, it's so hard to do these season preview episodes early in the season. If you go back to last season and listen to some of ours, God, they were probably painful to listen to, and we apologize. But we do our best with the content and examples that we have to work with. It's just exciting, one, that the Griffins are playing 3 games this weekend. I'm excited. I hate these stretches during the weekdays where there isn't a middle of the week game, especially it happens a lot in the AHL, but just want to see the boys play. But I am excited to see what they can build on this road trip. And I think what you'll see, the important thing to watch is going to be what the team does after this road trip. If they're able to build the chemistry with the team and get something going like they did last year in December, or if it's going to take a little bit longer. It's too early to tell. So yeah, that's our final thoughts on that. What we do have, though, is some updates around the AHL this week. One of them actually involves the Griffins. The AHL announced their Hall of Fame class of 2025, and Grand Rapids Griffins legend, and yes, I say legend, Michel Picard is going to be inducted in the AHL Hall of Fame, which is super exciting to see for the Griffins and himself overall. Obviously, if you know Michel Picard, his jersey was just retired recently as well. His number 7 hangs in the rafters of Van Andel Arena. Dare I say, in a weird spot. They moved all the banners this year, and I hate where they put them. Where did they put
them? Because I didn't see any of them when I was up there. I was like, weren't the banners hanging up at the one end, like up on the wall?
They were. It was perfect. They should be from the actual rafters, but I don't know why they don't do that. But if you're sitting on the side of the arena with the penalty boxes in front of you, you look up. They're up above where press row would be over there if it was on that side of the
So they
rink.
were straight above me. That's why I couldn't see them.
Yeah, you can only see them from one side of the arena. It's really dumb. I know it was a topic of conversation amongst those in the press box at the home opener going, what are we doing here? And that was my first reaction when I went into the first game on Friday against Manitoba. I looked up and said, that's stupid. So if anyone from the arena is listening, we got to think of a better solution for that because they are so hidden. There's no way. You can't hide a current team's history. You can... If you're sitting in the lower bowl, you can see the Grand Rapids Rampage banner still in the corner better than you can see 2 Calder Cup banners, jersey retirements, and all the division championships and league championships. Come on, we're better than that. We want to celebrate our history, not freaking hide it. Good God. But anyways, back to Michel Picard as I go on a complete rant there. Sorry, Picard. Again, just an all-time Griffins great. If you actually go through and look, he still holds a lot of records for the Grand Rapids Griffins to this date, including franchise leader in all-time points with 380 points in 364 games, franchise all-time goals for 158 goals in those 364 games as well, and all-time assist leader still with 222 assists in 364 games. Absolute legend. He was a dream to watch on the ice back when I was younger there. He was easily one of the biggest fan favorites, not just because he scored, but the way he plays, but also because the person he is. So to see him get these honors It's awesome. Super happy for him. He'll be inducted into the Hall of Fame at the All-Star Classic this year in Coachella Valley. So it'll be something fun for us to talk about and cover when that happens, because the All-Star break's really boring when you run a podcast unless you have a bunch of players go to it. I will tell you that firsthand. Last year sucked. I just got to cover anytime Bergie was on the ice, and he didn't play a ton in that game. So we'll have something fun to talk about. But congrats again to Michel Picard. The other inductees for the Hall of Fame this year include Michael Leighton, goaltender.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, everyone knows Michael Leighton, so good to see him get those honors.
Took the Flyers to the finals, right?
I believe
Michael
so.
Leighton in 2010?
Yeah. Dunk Fisher and Renee Droulette. Again, probably another name I butchered. Sorry, folks. But that's your class of 2025 Hall of Fame for the AHL. Again, congrats to Michel Picard. Another AHL update, because it's within the Central Division, which is the Griffins division, that we got to talk about. It's a guy that we've talked about a bunch when the Grand Rapids Griffins played the Milwaukee Admirals. Zach LaRue got his NHL call-up finally to the Nashville Predators. I guess they're trying to find a spark, and that's the right guy to bring up to find a spark. We don't know how long he'll be there, or he could have already been reassigned by the time that this episode comes out. But one, if we play Milwaukee anytime soon, a thorn in our side's gone, thank God. But two, I always like to shout out an accomplishment like that. Good for him. He is a top prospect within the Nashville organization. He brings an amazing offensive upside to the game, but God, is he a pest and a whiny you-know-what. But at the same time, again, if we play them anytime soon, which unfortunately we don't play them till November 16th, so we'll see how long that call-up's for. But if he's still there by then, yay! Outside of that, though, no other crazy updates. Yes, Askarov has finally let in a couple goals in San Jose, so we don't need to talk about more shutouts for Yaroslav Askarov. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the other one is that we noticed on Wednesday night in their game versus Milwaukee, the Iowa Wild had a familiar face back in net with Jesper Wallstedt playing for them. Don't really know the story behind that and why he's back in Iowa. They still lost even with him. They are struggling off this start here. But he's back, and what we said in our Griffins preview, in our Central Division preview, that Sebastian Kosa was like the top prospect goalie in the Central Division. He's got a partner back there, but it is always fun when Iowa comes to town, and it's Kosa versus Wallstedt. It's always a storyline, and always will be anytime they face each other. But it's safe to say, even though Wallstedt has played an NHL game and he's got that contract already with Minnesota, that extension, Kosa still got the upper hand on him. I will still say that until the day I die. So outside of that, though, no other crazy updates around the league. Lots of teams in action over this weekend, which is expected, but at the same time, we'll give you a quick standings update in the Central Division as it stands today, October 24th. Milwaukee Admirals are currently leading the division again this year. They're 4-1. Texas Stars are right behind them, actually at 3-1, tied with Grand Rapids. They're at 3-1, with the Manitoba Moose right behind Grand Rapids at 2-2. Rockford Ice Hogs at 1-2. Their only win of the season is against the Grand Rapids Griffins. Chicago Wolves at 1-2, and they just made a goalie call up today that makes Travis and I scratch our heads. Holy smokes! And the Iowa Wild, 0-5. They are struggling. 11 goals for, 25 against.
Kind of as expected.
Yeah, exactly as expected. Like, you look at Minnesota. Minnesota's kind of at that point where they've called everybody up. They've got the whole farm in Minnesota there, and
they're playing well.
They're playing very well, which, sucks for the Iowa Wild and the Iowa Heartlanders, honestly. Like, both those teams are probably going to struggle for a little bit here. But the Chicago goalie call-up we referenced is if you watched our Toledo recap, the goalie who started the second game for the Bloomington Bison and got yanked, really struggled in that game and is now with the Chicago Wolves. And if I know anything, or if you've followed any of the Chicago Wolves drama so far this season with them saying Carolina's not doing anything to get them better, this doesn't help their situation. And if you haven't followed along that news, go follow our friend Andrew Rinaldi on Twitter. Scroll back just a little bit in his Chicago page and you'll find the videos we're referencing. The drama in this organization, from the fireworks in their pregame to whatever's happening with ownership right now, is honestly something we should probably talk about more on this show, and maybe we'll bring out in the next episode and talk more about it. But go find it. It's kind of hilarious as a lifetime Griffins fan who hates the Chicago Wolves. I'm just kind of watching all the cards fall at once, and it's really funny. But it also is just crazy drama. This owner is saying things you would never think an owner's going to come out and say. Like, it's wild stuff.
I mean, if you've ever seen a BFI dumpster on fire, that's about the equivalent of what's going on there.
Yeah, and clearly they're not getting better. I mean, they only played 3 games, but 1 and 3 start off with 4 goals scored in those 3 games and 11 against. You bring up a goalie who got lit up by the Toledo Walleye this past weekend. I'm sure he's going to ride the bench, but at the same time, oof. It is weird, though, because Bloomington's affiliate is the Rangers, correct?
Yeah, I wonder if that was a loan.
It must have been a loan. Chicago Wolves social media posted it as a call-up, but I don't know. That's not my job. Yeah, right. It's not my job to follow them. But with that, I think it's a safe point to wrap up this episode. But before we do that, I think Travis has an in-season cup update. If you've been following along, the 3 of us are battling it out for the in-season Stanley Cup this year. If you don't know what that is, go to the in-season cup Twitter page. There's a whole massive following for it, and you'll understand fully what we're doing here. But Trev, who's got the cup right now, and who's battling it out next? Who's leading the contest even?
Well, I have the most days with it.
Classic.
You have it currently, though, with the Winnipeg Jets, and they play the Seattle Kraken tonight, so it's Brandon versus Nick at 10 o'clock.
I like my chances in this one. The Winnipeg Jets are on an absolute tear right now.
Yeah, they are.
It's insane. So I like my chances. I love that pick. I loved it when I made it. It was a late round pick for me, too, honestly. So I'm happy with it. So you're going down, Nick. Sorry, I do love the Kraken, but tonight I got to root against them, and I'm glad they do it. So thank you for that update, Trav, and we'll get a full breakdown. I got to make a graphic for this and share it in the social media sphere there, just so everyone can understand what we're talking about.
Just take the one from the in-season cup and just retweet it.
Yeah, honestly, not a bad idea. With that, though, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into this Grand Rapids Griffins preview. Again, we'll be back next Monday to recap this crazy weekend of hockey, and also back next Wednesday to recap the Toledo Walleyes battle with the Idaho Steelheads and preview their home opener weekend. So super excited about that. And of course, we'll have a Griffins preview that following Friday, previewing whatever the heck they got going on next, because I don't have my calendar on the screen anymore next to me. So thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you watch out for those shows. Make sure you head over to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Give us a follow over there for all the highlights and updates. We've been trying to be significantly more active across platforms. If you don't want to see all the political jargon on Twitter, you can find us elsewhere. Also, making sure we're using the app Blue Sky. We notice we've seen a ton of growth on that social media app. If you're not familiar with what it is, go look it up. It's a pretty sweet app, and we're trying to also integrate that into all of our posts as well, even though there are some limitations that the other ones don't give us. So make sure you head over there at Hockeytown W Pod. Give us a follow on there. We appreciate that. Always appreciate our sponsors of the show, of course, DraftKings and Game Time, and of course, the Hockey Podcast Network for securing those sponsors for us. But the longstanding sponsor of the show we love the most, Everything Hockey Clothing Company. Make sure you head over to everythinghockey.com. Use code WEST to save a few bucks off your order. Pick up a hoodie, because it's getting cold already out here. I'm freezing right now. My window's open, and I'm not going to get up and go shut it in the middle of this recording, but I'm freezing. Of course, on top of those sponsors, we got to thank our Patreon subscribers. Without them, the show would not be possible. Those subscribers currently are Alan, Lori, Randy, Derek, and Michael. Thank you guys for the support. Head over there. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it is a paid service, but we do give you guys exclusive content over there, like unedited episodes that have all the screw ups like the one I just made in there. Plus, we always post in there when we are in Van Andel Arena doing our media coverage. We always post who we have for post-game interviews for you guys to throw us questions that we can try to get asked. Of course, we can't ask every question. There's certain etiquette we have to follow, but if there's a question that falls within those guidelines, we will be sure to ask it to those players directly. So to have your questions answered by a player or Dan Watson directly, make sure you head over there, and maybe we'll have some questions with Toledo guys at the home opener. There's a hint for you all there. With that, everyone, thank you for tuning in again. We appreciate you. Have a fantastic weekend. And as always, go Griffins, go Walleye.
Nick's not here, so love you. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hockeytown West podcast. Be sure to check us out on Twitter at HockeytownWPod, and your host, Nick at GR Hockey Guy, and Brandon at BrandonGR Hockey.